both sides could have avoided this if they would have registered their trademark from the beginning.
Hi, how are you? How's it going? Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast presented by Hippo Direct. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Branstetter, digital marketing dude at Hippo Direct, and you can email me at max@hippodirect.com for help using your podcast as a marketing tool. This is episode number 76, and today's guest is Andrea Sager. She is the legalpreneur and the founder of the virtual law firm Andrea Sager Law. She started her law career as part of a big law firm, but then realized she couldn't help small business owners in the way she wanted to. So she went off on her own, and now she is the whiz for trademarks and copyrights. Let's get into the legalities. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with your legalpreneur, Andrea Sager from Andrea Sager Law. I have no idea how you came up with that name. How you doing today, Andrea?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing fantastic. So thanks for coming on. We've connected in the past, and this is cool reconnecting this way virtually. And you are the queen of the virtual law firm. So this is just too special here.
Yeah, no, this is exciting. I'm glad we get to connect after podcast movement.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out PM19.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a lot about copyrights and trademarks and other things in the legal world for small business owners and people who work in the small business world. But before we get into that, I want to dive into your background and what you're up to before the legal world. So when you think back to when you were growing up and before you went to law school, what was it about the law and legal world, the law world, that sounds like Wild West or something, the law, what was it about the legal world that appealed to you and made you think that you might end up doing this sort of thing one day?
So honestly, I just thought you could be really rich being a lawyer.
There you go.
I'm not even joking. Growing up, I was like, oh, I want to make a lot of money. I'll be a lawyer. And because it's like, okay, do I want to be a doctor or a lawyer? Well, I'm not good at science at all, but I can,
Noted.
I can do everything that it requires to be a lawyer. So I that's kind of what made me decide to go down the legal path.
Okay. So you were just, living and breathing the 50 Cent, get rich or die trying.
Yeah, exactly. And I quickly found out being a lawyer will not make you rich. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously there is a lot of financial, well-off potential there, but that's interesting that it's kind of that end of things that made you interested in it in the first place. I mean, once you realized that, or what it seemed that going down this legal route was a good way to make a lot of money, did you take a liking to law TV shows or other things in the legal world? Did you do anything to kind of dip your toe in that?
Well, yeah. So I always loved, CSI, NCIS, SVU. Those were all shows that I watched all the time. So naturally, I thought the only way to be a lawyer was to be a prosecutor or a criminal lawyer. And that was pretty much what I was planning to do. And when I went to college, I planned on majoring in criminal justice. But then it was just this is not really what I'm feeling. This it just was not for me. And then I found out about business attorneys, and I actually this is really random, but I was a college bowler, and
Ooh.
yeah, I was a college bowler. Actually have a national championship.
Congrats. Wow.
Thanks.
Not to brag, but yeah.
Yeah, not to brag or anything.
That's
but
incredible.
There was a girl on the team whose dad was a lawyer, and he's a big time personal injury lawyer down in Florida. And one Christmas break, I had stayed over there with them, and I was talking to him about how I want to go to law school, and he was like, "Oh, you need to be a tax attorney. That's how you get rich as an attorney, because people will pay a lot of money in order to not let the government get their money." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I want to do." So that was pretty much the path that I took, and that was the path that I planned on taking. And then I got my first, not my first internship, but between my second and third year of law school, which is essentially when you get the job that you're going to get whenever you graduate, I basically was like planning my whole internship with them around tax. And then I started actually doing tax work and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing in the world. Yeah, so that didn't go as planned. And I've kind of taken a lot of routes in the legal, not a lot of routes in the legal world, but I took a couple of different paths and I worked at that big firm for about 7 months. And then I realized this is not absolutely not the place for me because they did not want to work with small businesses. And I had a lot of small businesses that wanted to work with me, but I was like, look, like I can't even bring you to my firm. So finally I was just like, okay, whatever. I will go serve those people myself. So that's pretty much what I've done ever since then.
You have, and you're just bowling strikes left and right. I had no idea you were a national championship bowler. I can't get past that. We might have to turn this into the bowling episode, but
Hey, we
well,
can.
we'll get back to that later. So it sounds like you, as you start your career, it sounds like you're really finding a lot of things that you don't like, and it's really that's kind of narrowed it down for you. Is I kind of wanted to be in this world, but I don't like this side of the legal world. I don't like this side of the legal world. So that's kind of navigated you to where you are. What do you think was the big turning point moment where you said, enough of this big law firm life, I need to do this on my own and start my own law firm, which as we know now is turned out to be a virtual law firm, which is really cool.
Yeah, so I definitely had like this one defining moment while I was at that firm. So I had a client who, or a potential client who was wanting to come onto the firm. And I used to own a women's clothing store. So that's where I had this whole network of other business owners that needed help. So I was trying to onboard this one client who needed a trademark. And she didn't have an issue paying the fees. And I had told her, I was like, it's going to be, it's going to be expensive. She's like, whatever, I just have to get it done. So I was bringing her on, and at that firm, you had to have another attorney, a higher partner, basically approve them. And what I understood it as, it was just a formality, like everybody got approved, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, my client did not get approved because they were like, look, this is not a million or billion-dollar business. We don't want them. And I was just so baffled because in my head, I'm like, she's paying the rates. She's not asking for a discount. She just needs some work done. And the guy literally told me to my face, like, this is not a quality client for us. I was like, okay, fine. And so from that moment forward, I was just like planning my exit from that firm. Yeah, it
Man.
was outrageous.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see how that could ruffle some feathers there. And what made you go the virtual law firm route as opposed to being like an in-person and I guess brick and mortar law firm? I don't know if that term's used in the legal world, but
Yeah.
as opposed to being the more traditional route.
Yeah, so we were in Cincinnati at the time.
Oh, shout out
And
Ohio. I'm from Cleveland originally,
yeah.
but
Oh, okay. So we were,
Skyline Chili.
oh, I don't like any of those.
Anyway,
Oh man. Um
it's polarizing.
yeah. We were in Cincinnati and we were planning on moving to Houston, which is where I'm from and where my family is. And at the time I was also like, yeah, I worked at a big firm, but I didn't have money saved or anything like that. So it was just a matter of, okay, well, I can afford to have this virtual firm. I can't afford to have, a brick and mortar office, which going into it, I actually planned on doing trademarks because it's federal law work and I can work with clients nationwide.
Mm,
So that I was very intentional about that. And it's been something that I really, really enjoy doing because I have found that what I love doing is helping businesses and being surrounded by business owners and different businesses. So doing the trademarks, the copyrights, all the intellectual property, that is what I have found to be my zone of genius. And basically
ooh,
that's how I have found my little niche.
I love that. Zone of genius. I think you need to trademark that. I'm sure you never get that joke ever. Let's get to those trademarks and copyrights and intellectual property. This segment is brought to you by Andrea. No, I'm just kidding. But we, we could talk about that after the fact. But Andrea, you are in the zone of genius, as you so eloquently said. And so there's a lot I want to dig into here, and that can be really helpful for small business owners. But I think it definitely helps to start with the basics. So, can you start us off by just kind of grounding us and explaining the difference between trademarks and copyrights?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are definitely two of the most misused terms by business owners. And usually, people know there's a thing called a copyright and there's a thing called a trademark, but they don't know
What?
exactly what they are and what they do. So, a very high level, a trademark identifies your branding. So that's mainly your brand name, your logo, your slogan, anything that identifies your brand. It could be your podcast name, it can be a course name, basically just anything that's actually identifying your business. On the other hand, we have copyrights, which are essentially all of your content. I tell people this is basically the content that you're producing daily. So your podcast content, your blog posts, your photos, your videos, your course content, if you write a book, all of that is protected with a copyright.
So you kind of have the top level overall brand on the trademark side, and then you have the copyright side, which is kind of once you get down into what you're actually spreading out, distributing from a content side. So that's really helpful there. Of these two kind of big pillars there, which of those do you specialize in more?
Definitely trademarks. That is my go-to. That is my not I don't want to say secret sauce, but
You just
that is
revealed it.
that is what I love doing the most. And I love trademarks. I don't know why, but that is my favorite thing to do in my business.
Do you think there's anything about just working with brands and the branding side of thing and how people present themselves that kind of naturally draws you to that?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, and you'll catch like, if you are around me for any period of time, you'll catch me, like, my husband, he'll always laugh when I hear, like, a unique name or a catchy name, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they should trademark that," or I'll check into it and be like, "Oh my god, do they have a trademark?" So, yeah, I think that's what it is, honestly, like, catchy branding and stuff that really stands out. I think that's what really gets me, and I love how so I get a lot of people also that have something that is generic and can't be trademarked. And I love being able to help them to come up to rebrand and actually create something that can be trademarked.
So you have a trademark addiction, a very healthy trademark
Yeah.
addiction. You can't hear anything. So what is it in this trademark world? So right off the bat, what are some key things to know when you're considering getting a trademark?
So, number one, you have to actually be using the mark to be registered. So, you can actually apply for a trademark before you're using it. So, when you are thinking about starting a business or thinking about, starting a new product line within your business, you can file an application for those names, but they won't be registered until you're actually to market with that business or product. So
Hmm.
you would file an intent to use application. And then once you get all your final approvals, you then have to submit a statement of use, which shows how you're actually using the trademark. And those are very helpful because it kind of allows people to reserve the name before they're actually in business.
How do you go about actually filing that and reserving your name? Like, is it something that anybody can do, or is it something? I mean, I know you do it a lot for your clients as well. Like, does it take an expert and somebody who really knows this stuff to actually secure your name or have the potential to secure your name?
Yeah, so anybody can do it. You definitely don't have to have an attorney. And people ask me all the time, like, hey, do I have to have an attorney? I'm like, no, you can totally do this by yourself. Some people will file it themselves the first time. And then if they get a refusal, then they'll come to me, or they'll file one trademark. And then they're like, okay, I need another trademark for this other thing in my business. And they're like, listen, I don't like it took them 5 hours to figure out how to file the application.
Oh,
And they're like, listen, I don't want to go through that ever again. Just do it for me.
yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, no. Oh wow. In all seriousness, though, it is definitely figure outable. Nothing in the legal world can't be done on your own. You can do everything on your own.
Right. I imagine working with somebody like you has a major benefit in terms of saving time. I mean, I could just imagine so many people trying to figure out how to do this, and then it takes so long. So, on that trademark note, what's something that you see a lot of your clients? Well, we don't need to throw your clients under the fire, but what's something that you see a lot of people doing incorrectly in the trademark world that kind of just grinds your gears and more people should do correctly?
Yeah, so one of the biggest misconceptions is that you can change like one word of your name and it won't be trademark infringement. So my brand name is Andrea Sager Law. If there's an Andrea Sager Legal, that's trademark infringement. If there is Andrea Seeger Law, that's trademark infringement
Mm,
because it's so similar that my clients are likely to be confused with the other brand that it's infringement. So people need to really, really understand that it doesn't matter if it's not the same exact name. If it's so similar that it will cause or it's likely to cause confusion, then it's infringement.
so it doesn't need to be exactly the same. When you said Seeger, I was thinking of Bob Seeger, so you just might want to watch out there. So why in the first place is it important to get a trademark? Like, can you kind of walk us through a scenario of a brand or a business that is protected via trademark versus not?
Yeah, so I'm actually going through this situation right now where my client has been using the name since, and I'm not going to say the exact names, but I'll give this example because it's an
Oh,
ongoing proceeding.
no, it's okay.
But it's a prime example of
Probably for
why
the good.
you, yeah, it's a prime example of why you actually need to register your mark as soon as possible. So I have a client who's been in business, had this brand name since 2015. Well, she just registered her name this year, and now there's another company coming along saying they've been in business since like 2006. Well, they've been using it as their slogan, not as the actual brand name, and they have filed a cancellation against my client. Well, we have so many arguments to overcome their cancellation proceeding, and they actually I went off about this yesterday on Instagram and Facebook because I had the discovery conference with the other attorney, and he was just trying to bully us around like, oh, your client's just a screen printer who, yeah, we couldn't find her because she's just a small screen printer. I'm like, listen, dude, my client's made $1 million every year since she's been in business, and they're just trying to bully us around, but it's their fault because they didn't take the time to protect their name from the beginning. So
Mm.
he's trying to claim, oh, we've been using it since 2006. We make $5 million a year. And I'm like, okay, if you make $5 million a year, why aren't you going to file an application for it? Why aren't you going to register that and prevent? Now your client has to spend tens of thousands of dollars to try and protect the name, which, and they keep thinking that we're just going to roll over and die. And I'm like, listen, dude, we're not rolling over. Like, we are fighting this. And that's honestly, that's another reason why I love working with small businesses, because every one of these proceedings within the trademark office, almost all of them have come to me from another attorney. Because when they're small businesses like that, attorneys are just like, oh, you can't afford this. Like, just don't waste your time. Like, they're a bigger business. You don't need to worry about it. I'm like, no. And for me, like, that's my ticket. I'm like, look, even though you're a small business, they've been sleeping on your business for 5 years. And now, like, they're losing the rights to their name because they did not protect it from the beginning.
Oh, wow. How often do you see that come up?
That's actually the third time it's happened this year. I've had clients on both sides of it. And earlier this year, I had one client who wanted to register because there was a business pretty close to her who had the same name, and she wanted to trademark it and get them to stop. Well, once we started going through the process, I found out, look, girlfriend, like, you waited too long to get this process started. She's been in business almost 10 years. She's just now getting the process started, and now she no longer has the rights to her name.
Is that a rule of thumb there? That is there any sort of best practice or rule just to use as many like idioms as possible? There, like, does a business who's been around longer and makes more money, like by default, did they get the benefit of the doubt in the trademark case?
Not necessarily. It honestly just depends. So, if you have had your registration for 5 years or close to 5 years, then they, like, if my client would have filed back when she started in 2015, then we wouldn't have this battle going on because she would have the rights by default. Now that she just applied, that's an issue. Not just, she just got registered earlier this year. it's an issue that she's only been registered for that long, even though she's been in business for for about 5 years. But we still have a lot of arguments, which I think we still have a really good chance of winning. But this is one of those that it's just like both sides could have avoided this if they would have registered their trademark from the beginning.
It's really interesting to hear. And it's cool how, I mean, it fits really well with your brand, but that you get, obviously there's only so many details you can share, but I just really appreciate how you give updates on Instagram and kind of behind the scenes stories as these things are actually happening, because I think there's no better way to learn from somebody who's interested in this stuff or is relevant to than actually seeing the behind the scenes and what goes on. So it's neat that you do that, and you've carved a really, really great brand for yourself out of this.
Thanks. Yeah, like I would. Oh gosh, I'm trying not to get fired up again, but yesterday I was really
No,
fired
get
up
fired
after
up.
that
We want
phone call.
it.
Like, because this guy was just so my client is a screen printer in
Mhm.
Texas, and she's had $1 million brand ever since she started her business. And he tried to tell me, because when you have a trademark, you have a duty to monitor, to police and enforce your trademark. Well, obviously the other party has not done that. And he tried to tell me, well, yeah, if you're going to tell me that we couldn't find your client because she was just a small screen printer in Texas, then yeah, we couldn't find it. I'm like, listen, she's $1 million business. She goes to all the
Yeah.
same trade shows. She's been at the same trade show every year for the past 10 years. The first 5 years was under a different business, but she's been there ever since you guys have been at trade shows. So it is like it's their fault they didn't monitor. It's also my client's fault for not filing sooner. But yeah, I was pretty fired up yesterday.
You're in the zone of fired up. I love it. And what about, so that's trademark. So that's clearly your passion, your fiery passion area. What what how about on the copyright side of things? So where these days, at the time of this recording, are you seeing copyrights filed or copyrights used most frequently? Like what types of content?
Yeah, so a lot of them are courses, a lot of courses and blogs. And with blogs, you don't have to file every single blog. For the clients that I have that have a lot of blog posts, I tell them, look, we can file every 6 months or every 12 months. It's basically whatever frequency you want. But if we're going to file right now for the previous 5 years, we can file every single blog post for the previous 5 years in one application.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I just tell them, we have to get some protection on the content that you have. And so the blog posts, courses, photos, of course, also designers. So I have a lot of t-shirt designers, and I just had one that settled this past week for about 5,000, which it's not a lot of money, but you have these small businesses who make, maybe a couple $100,000 a year, a $5,000 settlement, it's a lot more than what they would have got without a settlement.
Exactly.
So, and it's not a lot of big numbers, but it's big numbers to my clients, and it means a lot to my clients. So any settlement that I'm able to get for my clients, it's really appreciated by them.
And what's that look like? So I'm interested on the blog side of things because I never really thought about blogs from a copyright perspective. Like when somebody copyrights a blog, is there the actual like C or registered logo there? Like how do you know when a blog is copyrighted, and what's the number one benefit of actually copywriting something like a blog or podcast or something in that content world?
So your content is automatically protected by copyright the moment it's created. However, you cannot sue for copyright infringement unless you have an actual registration. And
Mm.
if you have the registration before somebody infringes or within 3 months of you publishing it out to the world, you're eligible for statutory damages. And statutory damages is basically a very, very big bargaining chip. So when you're eligible for statutory damages and you sue someone, they have to pay your attorney fees as long as you win. So that's
Holy
why it's
cow.
that's why it's a big bargaining chip, because people don't want to pay your attorney fees. And in addition to that, with statutory damages, I don't want to get too much into it, but basically it just makes it an
Go for it.
easier it just makes it an easier lawsuit for you. So with copyrights, it's really hard to prove damages. And because the thing is, like, so say I wrote this blog post and for whatever reason you steal the blog post and end up making millions of
I
dollars
just
off of
might.
it. Yeah.
Thanks for
You
the
make
idea. I'll run with it.
you make millions of dollars off of it. Well, in order to prove damages for copyrights, it's lost profits. Even though you made $1 million, there's no like it's not guaranteed that I would have made $1 million if you didn't post that blog post that I wrote. So that's why it's really hard to prove damages. And with statutory damages, it's just easier. It's just easier to prove them.
Yeah, well, anything that makes things easier sounds pretty appealing. What's the difference in filing for copyright versus trademark? I mean, is it a similar process or?
No, no. So very different. And so the filing fee for copyright is $55. The filing fee for a trademark is $225.
Hmm.
And yeah, yeah. And they're both different websites. The copyright office, it's really random. And I hate having to tell clients this, but basically I'm like, listen, all we're gonna do is file this piece of paper. We will not get any communication from them, but one day we'll just receive the registration in the mail. Um,
Oh, cool.
the trademark office is very different. We have a whole process. It's first you go through the examining period, then you go through the opposition period, the publication period. Hopefully by then you'll get registered. But the trademark process is on average about, I would say, about 9 months. So it's pretty lengthy. There can be a lot of back and forth there. I have a couple that are going over a year now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's just it's a lot of it can be a lot of back and forth.
You see there why some people then file those trademarks beforehand. I mean, even notably, at the time of this recording, I know LeBron tried to trademark Taco Tuesday
Oh
for
gosh, yes.
for a podcast, and it kind of obviously with his magnitude and how well known he is, like it became a sort of this viral thing, and people were there was a lot of conversation about it. It became a very public thing, but that is just an example, a small example of how early people can apply to lock things down.
Yeah, exactly.
So you finally decide to start a podcast. Congrats! You've never been more excited. But wait a sec. You quickly find out this is way more of a time commitment than you initially thought. You're going to need someone that has you covered behind the scenes. That's where I come in. Email me at max@hippodirect.com and let's get wild. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get into your mind, if you will, into the zone of Andrea and
Let's do it.
how you stay inspired, how you stay creative, because you've taken a very, very creative approach to the legal world and very, very non-traditional, if you will, and look at kind of traditional big law firms. So you have Andrea Sager Law, you're the legalpreneur. What do you do to stay creative?
So I honestly just try to not do what everybody else is doing, but at the same time, I guess it is what everybody else is doing. But no, seriously, I just try to create unique solutions for clients. And by doing that, if I have, one offering and I have maybe a lot of people are going for it, but then some people are like, oh, I just can't afford that. Well, then I try to create unique solutions in order to help them pay for it. So with trademarks, very, very, very few attorneys will actually offer payment plans that they stay in house. So sometimes they'll, outsource a payment plan, but really the attorney gets the money up front and they don't have to worry about it on the back end. I actually offer 3 and 6 month payment plans and I just keep it all in house. So I'm actually funding it all. It's me that's getting the later cash flow, but it helps a lot of clients because I work with a lot of small businesses and I know how critical trademarks are. And I know how hard it can be bootstrapping, trying to do everything by not getting any funding. So that's where I try to come in and create those unique solutions. So I have the 3 and 6 month payment plans for trademarks. And then I have the membership that I have that basically provides all access for a pretty good price. It's not free, but
You don't work for free? Are you kidding me?
I know. I'm the worst attorney ever.
Oh my God. Yeah. We'll trademark that as well.
Yeah.
But it's cool. You've taken a really, really creative approach to all this. When you think back to when you come up with these ideas and how you decide to do something like that, like payment plans and memberships versus, other routes that everybody else is doing, are there activities? Are there things you're doing where these ideas kind of crystallize in your head?
Well, I think it's probably a lot of podcasts and reading books.
Hmm.
And honestly, that's gotta be where it comes from.
You mean listening, or you mean when you become a guest on these and
Oh,
talk through things?
listening.
What are your favorites can you give us some of your favorite podcasts you listen to, and also a favorite book that comes to mind, or a helpful book that comes to mind?
Yeah, so one of my favorite podcasts is For the Love of Money with Chris Harder. That's definitely up there for favorites. Also, Ed Milet. I think Ed Milet probably gets my juices flowing the most as far as coming up with good ideas. And then books. So, Money and the Law of Attraction by Abraham Hicks.
It's interesting that it kind of ties back to like your early motives, how money is such a motivator for you. You can see that comes through in the podcasts and the books and all the content you consume as well.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's pretty funny.
There you
But no,
go.
and
I'll
and
charge
it's
you for
not
that.
even now it's not even about like, oh, I want to be so rich. I want to do this. I want to do that. Now it's just a matter of, okay, well, now that I have a team, now it's a matter of, okay, this is awesome. I love having a team. I want, like, now my motivation is, okay, how many people can I support as far as team
Yeah.
members? And then like how many families can I basically provide a living for? Because that's pretty cool to me. When I hired my first full-time employee, I was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, just the benefit, the value that you're adding for somebody else, and helping improve their lives. And the fact that you guys all unite around your mission is really cool there. What about hobbies? So you mentioned that you are an A plus 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 bowler. What about, in addition to that, what other things do you like to do in your free time when you're not, hearing random brand names and thinking how to trademark it?
So I have two kids. I have a 9-month-old and an almost 3-year-old. So
Oh,
basically wrangling those two, and then
wrangling. That's
yeah.
a hell of a word. Fits with
No,
Texas.
yeah, exactly. I spend a lot of time with them. So I work from home, but they go to daycare, and they're at daycare every day. But when I get them from daycare, like, I'm not on my phone. I'm not working. Like, my time with them is my time with them. So
Yeah.
even weekends, like, I don't work weekends, and that's because I want to be present with my kids. So basically, I guess you could say kids are my my kids are my hobby. But my husband and I did
I don't
start
think I've ever heard it that way, but I like it.
my husband and I did start bowling again this year because I actually hadn't bowled since college. And last year I was pregnant. So this year we started bowling in a league again. And then recently we started bowling in some tournaments, and we've been doing pretty well. So it's been fun. Honestly, like, the bowling hobby has been really, really good for us because it's been time away from the kids. It's been something that we can really bond doing together, and when we win, that's even better. So bowling has been a really good hobby for us lately.
And what do you think it is that, like you said, you were literally national champion? Was that in college that you were national champion bowling?
Yeah, so my college team, it was NAIA, but with bowling, there's like a million. Well, I guess with any sport, there's several different championships, but
Hmm.
NCAA actually isn't the biggest championship for bowling. So
Really?
yeah, so right now it's NAIA, NCAA, club, and then you have USBC, which is the United States Bowling Congress. That is the big championship that, even if you win NCAA, that doesn't even mean you're going to the big USBC championship.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
crazy. And I think they're setting a record for how many acronyms they can throw at you as well.
Oh gosh, don't you know it?
LOL. So let's get to a fan favorite segment called the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week!
I don't know if that was like a laugh or a squeak, but we'll take it. Wild Wild business shout out of the week. So this is where we talk about a recent ad or campaign that caught our attention. And, I think about Buick 24/7. I'm sure you do too. But no, Buick is something that we were talking about that came up in your mind because they've really made a name for themselves through commercials. Can you share why Buick stands out to you?
Yeah, so my husband and I don't watch TV very often, but whenever we do, or whenever we're watching like Hulu and commercials come on and the Buick commercials come on, we always laugh. And to even get a commercial to catch your attention, like that's one thing. And then to actually get you to laugh, like that's saying something. And the Buick commercials with the old ladies, and they're like, I told you it was a Buick. Like for some reason, we always crack up at that. Like that may be the cheesiest thing, but hey, it's working for Buick. Well, at least for me. I don't drive a Buick, but I love their commercial.
Right. Yeah. So I'm sure their marketing team will be happy with that. Well, what is it about those commercials that appeals to you? Like, is it the humor aspect, or is it the actual characters that are there?
I think it's the characters because it's these old ladies, or maybe it's just the one old lady in this one commercial, and they're always looking for the car. And I guess it's a new body style for Buick, and they don't recognize the car. And then finally they were like, "Oh, it is that car." And she's like, "I told you it was a Buick."
I'm just gonna see how many different ways I can ask you to do that impression
No,
because
no, that's
that's gold.
it.
That's gold. I love it. I mean, it seems like they took a really out of the box strategy of just kind of putting like a random or more interesting characters there and having a funny voice that you could do impressions of. But they have a brand. I mean, the car space, the auto space is so crazy competitive. I
Yes,
mean,
it
and
is.
now you have Elon Musk literally like unveiling like polygons with wheels. Like there's so much out there that it's so hard to stand out. In Buick, like I honestly don't know much about Buick the brand, but when you mentioned Buick, I definitely remember seeing their commercials as well. And so they are doing a good job of being more memorable than just their name is, I would say. And I think for them that the humor and the talent and the actors, the characters in their commercials are working well for them.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think they're trying to appeal definitely to a younger audience because I think traditionally it's been geared towards an older audience, but with the new body shape, I think it is more appealing.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're trying to appeal to the younger audience with older actors, if you will. So talk about out of the box. So let's get to a segment called the unusual. So we're gonna get weird. We're gonna get unusual here. Think
Uh-oh.
about yeah, exactly. The section. Think about pet peeves, quirks, and weird talents. So I have a feeling you have at least one big pet peeve. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Probably the fact that my husband never, ever puts his dishes in the sink.
He's on notice.
Throwing
He's
throwing my husband under the bus.
a little subtweet there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm okay with it.
that's tough. We'll put him in timeout. How about quirks? Is there something about your personality that your husband or kids or one of your kids probably isn't old enough to talk yet. What your husband or somebody calls you out for that's a little bit quirky about your personality? And there's no shame here. I mean, sometimes the quirks are the best parts of people's personality.
I say some really, really weird things sometimes. And not weird. Like I don't want to say dumb things, but essentially very dumb things. And I'll
Essentially
like
dumb.
yeah, and I'll say it and then afterwards I'm like, what did I just say?
Wait, can you give us an example of this?
I'm trying to think. Like, okay, so here's an example. This was actually from a while ago, but for some reason I feel like instances like this happen more frequently. So we were engaged and my maiden name was Guzman, Guzman, and they called me the Goose in college. And
The
I was
goose. I
with,
like it.
yeah, so in college, they called me the Goose, and we're in the car with my fiance at the time and my soon to be mother in law. And I think one of them was like, oh, I wonder what, people are going to call you when you're married because they can't call you the Goose anymore. And I was like, well, why not? People still call, my brother's married and people still call him Goose. So I totally,
Takes a second there.
yeah, it took me a second there to realize that my last name would no longer be Guzman, but eventually I got it and I was like, oh gosh, I can't believe I said that.
You're the Sag.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. The Sag goose. Yeah. It all works. Sure.
Yeah, I've just had some
I know
bad
what you mean.
moments like that lately.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, hey, I think business owners spend so much time focusing on the business that it's okay to let it slip a little bit when you're outside of work hours. I think it's okay. You can't be on top of it all the time.
Yeah, that's what I tell my husband. I'm like, listen, my brain is just so high strung all day. By the time the end of the day hits, like I can't think about anything else. Like my brain doesn't
Yeah.
function.
I experienced the same thing. And actually recently at the time of this recording, so my girlfriend Dana lives in Hoboken. And last time I was over her place, I mean, it was like a crazy week. And so I was coming to her place after work. And I literally like broke 2 random things at her apartment in a 10-minute period. And I don't know why it had like a Tupperware thing. And then I like sat on a hanger and I don't know how I did it. It was like my mind was like mush in that time.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
I feel that. How about on the positive side, how about weird talents? So like, I'm not going to let you say bowling because that would
Oh
be
man.
there you go. There you go. And I wouldn't call that weird. So weird talents though, is there something that you're like really, really good at or just kind of have a knack for, but it doesn't necessarily have an impact on your business? So it could be like a memory trick, or it could be like you're like perfect changing the TV remote channel at the perfect time after commercial, like something like that. It's something totally random.
No. Besides bowling,
I'm sure there's got to
that's
be
my
something.
skill, man.
Is there something else in addition to bowling that you're like really, really good at, non-work related?
So I'm actually pretty good at darts as well.
Oh, okay. So wow. So you just,
Like I'm a good skill person.
you're very skilled. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So are you a better bowler or
Oh, bowler,
dartist?
bowling hands down. We don't throw darts very often, but when we do, like we have actually schooled people at a bar before because like I would warm up and I'm not very good at all when I warm up and they're like, "Hey, y'all want to play like for $10?" And we're like, "Sure." And then we just like killed them. We've done that a couple times actually. And I don't do it on purpose either. I'm just like warming up and then
Yeah. So
we actually
if you want to get hustled by Andrea and Co, then, find her at the nearest bar. All right. So let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get wild. What is your number one single most helpful bowling tip? Why are you so good at bowling?
Well, I practice. I mean, that's honestly the biggest tip because, yeah, you may be skilled, but if you don't practice, then you're not going to be consistent.
This is true. What is your favorite app on your phone other than a social media app?
Oh, man. You got me again.
Yeah, you got to work them in every now and then.
Squarespace.
Oh,
Squarespace
okay.
Analytics.
All right, throwing WordPress under the bus. I'm just kidding. If you had a cruise ship named after you, or you created a cruise ship, I know this is like a everyday scenario, what would you name the cruise ship?
Oh, what would I name? The Goose. Absolutely. The Goose.
The Sag. I like it. Can't get away from the goose. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, and it had to be the same thing for every meal, but you could choose that, what would it be?
100% crawfish.
100, not even 95.
Like all day long, I would choose crawfish. Like that is my jam. I actually have almost got mercury poisoning from eating so much crawfish.
No way. Oh
I'm not even joking.
Wow. Well, glad you did not, but it sounds like you might enjoy some crawfish then. And then if you were in a fight with, it could be anybody, maybe you're fighting some other attorneys out there, and your sidekick that you could bring with you was one superhero, who would that superhero be?
Wonder Woman.
Bam. There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Andrea. This has been amazing. Really, really appreciate you taking us through your story and your trademark and copyright and IP, et cetera, tips. and even your passion for crawfish. So thank you for thanks for coming on and sharing everything. Where is the best place for people to connect with you and your law firm?
Yeah, find me on Instagram at Andrea Sager Law. I am also Twitter, Facebook, all Andrea Sager Law, but Instagram is pretty much the best place.
Yes, confirmed. And then final thing here, final thoughts. The stage is yours. It could be a quote. It could be, you doing that impression of the woman in the Buick commercial again. Whatever you want.
Oh
Send us
my
off here.
Let's see. Make it a great day, man. Make it a great day.
I told you it was a Buick. Sorry, I tried, Andrea. I tried. Thank you, Andrea, so much for coming on the podcast. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also dive into our marketing and business growth resources at hippodirect.com/blog and hippodirect.com/newsletter. That newsletter is the Hippo Digest, and it's your place for wild marketing ideas every single week. And of course, come say hey on your favorite social media platforms at the handles Hippo Direct and Max Branstetter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!